My father was dying, and went to church. I hadn't been to church in God knows how long. And I said, God, I know you're calling him home, but I'm going to ask you to keep him alive for the maximum amount of time. And if you do, like, I'll kind of do whatever you want kind of thing. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And my father stayed alive for 2 years, the maximum amount of time. And it was shortly after that that my whole life began to break down and change.
Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Linda Christine. Today I talk with Pauline Ralphaela. Oh my gosh, what a sweet, loving, genuinely gentle and pure soul she is. I think you're really going to love this conversation. Paulina is an intuitive healer. She is a Reiki master, and she also channels for the Akashic records and can tap into that, which is super cool. Today we talked about her healing journey and how she cracked open, and when she started working on herself, all these beautiful modalities came flooding in for her. We talked about the inner child, which is always fascinating. And we talk about cellular memory and how that goes back to even other lifetimes, which is so fascinating. And Pauline even shared with us a little bit of light language and a beautiful message. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. And I also hope that you like, share, and subscribe, because that is a way these beautiful stories get shared. And by sharing, we are teaching others, and others are learning from our stories. And it's just wonderful. And that is my hope for all of this. And that's why I do it. So like, share, subscribe. And here we go with Conversation for the Soul. Hello, Pauline. Welcome. It's so great to have you here today. How are you doing?
Oh, well, first I want to thank you, Linda, for having me. This is so exciting. And it's always great for us to be able to sort of speak our truth, right? And collaborate in that way, because we're all in this together. And I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I just published a book and busy sort of recreating a lot of things this year. So I haven't figured it all out yet. But I see it and feel it in the ethers. So I've got to figure it out.
What do you mean by recreating?
So there's all kinds of work that I do as an energy healer, as a spiritual counselor, as a channel. And it just seems like, and reading the Akashic records, and it just seems like everything's starting to change how I work. It's all becoming different. And I can't even define it in words, but it's becoming different, but it's becoming more powerful. And it's tapping into old timelines. Yeah. So we can really clear these timelines, which I think you just did today.
Yes. Yeah, it's strange and cool and wonderful all at the same time. Yeah, that was wild. Some old another whole life stuff just came up, and I've heard or seen a lot of people on social media also posting about working through old traumas, whether they are ancestral or just from when they were younger.
Yeah.
Have you been feeling a lot of that as well?
Well, I have, but as I write about this in my book, but I went through a period that I call graceful isolation from like 2001 to about 2008 or 9. It was like a 7-year period. Wow. And I wasn't isolated in my home, but I kind of was, because my focus was transformation and working with clients, and that was it. And so it was during that time that many past lives and old traumas began to show up, and I had to work through them. And so it was during that time that I cleared so much of that. I mean, we're never going to clear it all in one lifetime, but I cleared so much of it that it actually paved the way for me to begin to help others move through those energies of the past lives and the traumas a little more easily.
How, like when you get somebody that's trying to work through it, what's your go-to recommendation for moving through all of that?
Well, you know, I am a big inner child person. Okay. And so a lot of my work has to do with healing that inner child because, you know, we can't go back and reconvene with the people we were with in the past lifetime. We're not going to start pointing fingers and blaming in this lifetime because it doesn't get us anywhere. And so a lot of my focus is working through the energy bodies and working with the inner child and empowering the reconnection to self, right? Because like I write about in my book, you know, we're really all wanting one thing, and that is to remember the love that we are, right? The power
Yes.
that we are. And in remembering that, we make all of our healing about us. So that's my focus. I bring them back to self. And it works. It works pretty well.
That's so interesting because I had the dragons tap me on the shoulder a few months ago, and now I'm doing dragon readings, and I've had 2 clients in the past week that the dragons had said, you need to play. You need to reconnect with that younger version of yourself and get out and play. And the other one was basically the same directive, get out there and just start exploring a little bit and having fun.
Right.
And it's interesting how we forget that so easily.
We do. We forget that we have a magical child.
Yeah.
And where that magical child is maybe wounded, right? Or hurt or traumatized, that's something that happened in the physical life. The soul is still untouched. So if we can get back to that soul self and heal the 3D traumas, we should be able to reconnect with that magical child, right? The imagination, right? The joy, the laughter.
It's so interesting when you start learning about that inner child, how much you can see it cropping up, subconsciously.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And one of the ways that I just began talking to her, and I began reparenting her. And it's not that I had a bad childhood. I didn't have a bad childhood, but nothing's perfect, right?
Yes.
So I can be the perfect parent to my inner child because I know exactly what I need.
Yeah.
And she just, I used to, when I was working with her, I used to see her in this green, like emerald green tutu that my mother used to make us take these ballet lessons. And every time I would reconnect with my inner child, I'd see myself standing there in this ballet pose with this green tutu and this fluffy little skirt. And I would have this big smile on my face. And she just needed my love and my approval.
It's beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah. I mean, how powerful would it be if, when we all did meditation, we would connect with that inner child on a daily basis.
Yes.
I feel like it would just expedite so much healing for people.
Well, I think that it does. I think that it does. That's so much of the work I do. And I just did it with myself, and I could feel like the evolution and the healing was measurable.
So beautiful. So Pauline, when did you start to have your spiritual awakening? When did you decide, oh, this is kind of the path I'm going to take? Or did you have multiple reawakenings like many of us?
Well, my path started in 1988. So, and I didn't necessarily choose it. I didn't even know what was happening to me back then because we didn't have the knowledge back then that we have today.
Right.
And what I came to understand around 2001 was that I had bargained with God. My father was dying, and I went to church. Well, I hadn't been to church in God knows how long. And I said, God, I know you're calling him home, but I'm going to ask you to keep him alive for the maximum amount of time. And if you do, like, I'll kind of do whatever you want kind of thing. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And my father stayed alive for 2 years, the maximum amount of time. And it was shortly after that that my whole life began to break down and change. And that was God pulling me in the direction where my true purpose was. And it was out of corporate, it was out of human resources, it was going back to school, it was starting to heal myself. I had crises of physical illness, the loss of my father, and then a second divorce, all like within a year. And so I was searching. I didn't know I was searching, but I was searching. And everything that I needed began to show up. And I came in contact with an energy healer because the medical profession couldn't help me. And it was that experience with her, and I worked with her for about 8 or 9 years, that I began to wake up. But even back then, into the 1990s, who knew it was an awakening? I just thought, oh, this is how my life is supposed to be. Okay. I didn't know. It wasn't until later, right? The words awakening, right, started to come into our view and our understanding of evolution, healing ourselves. And I thought, oh, gee, I've kind of been doing that for quite a while. That's what it is.
I wonder what, because we're so dependent on the internet now, and it's such a wonderful resource and such a great tool for connecting all of us, like heart-minded, like-minded souls. What did you do back then? How did you figure stuff out?
Because I did it alone, with the exception of this one healer who was way ahead of her time. At that time, I began to meditate. I began reading books, whatever I could get my hands on. I was always metaphysically inclined. I just didn't know. I was doing tarot since I was 16 years old. So, you start pulling out the tarot cards, like, what's going on with me, right? You're trying to figure it out. And then I just began having mystical experiences. They just began to show up, starting in about 1993.
Wow, what kinds of things happened?
Oh, well, I'll never forget the day I met my first spirit guide. I was asleep, and I apparently I sort of woke up into like the theta state. I was asleep, but my brain was awake, and my eyes were closed, but my inner eyes opened, and I looked over at the window on the left. And this ball of white light came in through the window and stopped right in front of the edge of my bed. And I was looking at it. I was asleep, but I was awake. I was in that in-between state. And I was watching this ball of light before me, but I was not afraid. And an image began to show itself in the center. And it was the face of an Asian woman. She turned out to be my spirit guide. And she gave me a message. And I wanted more from her. Okay. And the message was to give myself and my partner time, that we needed time to kind of learn how to communicate better. And then all of a sudden, it's like the dialogue was shut off. Her mouth was moving and I could see she was still talking to me, but I couldn't hear her. And it was as if a higher power said, no, that's enough. You can't tell her anymore. And then she stopped talking, and I was like telepathically saying, don't leave. I have more questions. And then she just faded out, and the white light glided right out of the window. And I woke up the next morning and I thought, what the heck just happened? And that's when I began to experience a lot of mystical experiences. It was around that time. I was also taken to heaven to meet my father, to spend time with my father. Now, I did not have a near-death experience.
Wow.
but I was brought to heaven. And it clearly, I was on the earth side because I couldn't touch him. There was like a barrier, right? It's the death barrier, right? You're alive on one side, on the other side, you're deceased. But he was there and he was telepathically giving me messages.
Wow. Now, how did that occur? Was that in dream state or meditation or what?
It was just in the dream state. I had gone to sleep. Had a lot of insomnia back then, and I hadn't slept in years. And I just said to my father, Daddy, I said, I need some questions answered. I need some help. And I actually fell asleep that night. And I was transported up to heaven. And what I noticed was not only did I get a message that I had to go back to school, okay, at 30 something years old, to go back to school to finish my degree. Wow. When the next morning I realized I had an upgrade in my health because I had been sick with chronic fatigue syndrome and bronchitis and all sorts of illnesses. There was an uptick in my health. So going up into the higher states of consciousness, right, helps us physically, mentally, emotionally. I was very clear, like in the month after that. So I began to get all this guidance out of nowhere, but I was never afraid. I just kind of knew this was normal.
Your guides are so responsive to you. You want something, they give it to you.
Well, and it's true, but I'll tell you, I think it's because I surrendered. And I do talk about that on my book. I mean, I really surrendered. I was just like, okay, you know what, God, I don't know how to live this life. I tried to live it the way everybody else does and put myself in the box, you know, and get married and try to have kids and it didn't work. So now I'm lost. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So guide me or take me home. And I was guided. So I am a true believer that surrender is the key to let yourself be guided, like get out of your own way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
it helps you get into flow that way too.
And you get into a flow. And rather than sort of try to logically figure everything out, you let it come to you. And it's easy. And life gets a little easier that way.
So then how did your gifts start to unfold from here?
So, well, I had learned transcendental meditation. And then I was told I was a healer. And I was like, no, I'm climbing the ladder to be like a corporate, human resource director. I'm going to earn $150,000 a year. And I was told, I heard the voice of God, quit your job. You've got a whole nother path. And so I just began studying. I started learning about subtle energies. I started learning about light body. I started reading books. And at that time, Neil Donald Walsh, right? Conversations with God was big. Carolyn Mace,
yeah, I love
her books were big. And I just began reading. And before I knew it, I was just taking energy classes, and then the typical become a Reiki master, all of that. We're all typical. But now my work is completely my own. I can't tell you what I do. It's all just a blended version of what I do. But the more I keep healing myself and the more I keep evolving, the stronger it gets. The healings get more and more powerful. Some of them have been miraculous. And I mentioned that in my book. Now, it's not me doing it. I'm just the vessel.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a higher power, but working through me. And I just surrender. And it just started happening. But yeah, I had some training. Started with some training.
Seems like yoga and Reiki are the gateway to spiritual. Coming into the spiritual world,
It's true. It is true because I way back when too, when I was sick, I heard, do yoga. And I was like, who's telling me to do yoga? This was in the early 1990s. Yoga. Wow. Like, am I supposed to become some sort of yogi? And shortly after that, I started to make connection between my thoughts and the manifestation of them. I saw an infomercial back then, okay, when they had infomercials, with Jane Fonda doing yoga. And I thought, oh my God. So I ordered her tape. And I'm a girl who did aerobics and pumping iron for my whole life. So doing yoga was not easy at first.
Yeah.
Because you have all that rigidity in your body that you have to sort of squeeze out through the fluidity of yoga. So I think you're right. Yoga, Reiki, meditation, great way to start.
Wow. So, okay, so you went into the corporate world. You started going that way, but you keep getting pulled this way. What finally got you out of that? Was there a big slap upside the head that was like, oh no, you're not doing this anymore?
It was when I heard the voice in my head, quit your job. And I thought, is somebody telling me to quit my job? And there was no one standing behind me. And I just ignored it. And 2 weeks later, heard it again. And it was almost, Linda, it was almost as if I had no choice. I stood up from my desk. I walked into my boss's office and I said, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice. And he said, what? I said, yeah. And he goes, why? And I was like, I just think I'm supposed to. I think my life is changing. And so I left. And it wasn't me who got up and went into my boss's office and said that. It was my soul. It was a higher presence speaking through me. There was no more bargaining to be had. I had to fulfill the bargain and the surrender that I had forgotten about years prior.
Wow.
So I knew I had to do what I'm doing as a healer and a counselor and a channel. And that's what I had to do. I never thought that would be my life. But I truly believe when we surrender and we trust, and that takes a little work because we don't always trust right away, that we're led to our greatness. We're led to our innate greatness. Yeah. And everybody has it. Everybody does.
And why do so many fight it?
Well, I think the ego.
Yeah.
I think the ego is afraid of it because I do recall a moment during my healing where my ego jumped in and I could feel the block, like, okay, no, you're not going deeper. You're not going anymore. And I said, well, I think I have to go deeper. And one of my spirit guides began talking to me and said, well, why do you fear that? And I said, well, I fear it because I don't know what it is. Well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what I'm going to see about myself that I don't like. And Spirit said to me, oh, don't worry. Everybody's got it. And in that moment, I thought, oh, because we tend to think we're the only ones that have insecurities, right? Or that we've had wounds, but we all have it. And it was in that moment that allowed me to go deeper. Because I thought, well, yeah, it's true. We've all got things. And then we can shift into compassion instead of judgment about it. Absolutely. So I had to push through some ego, some resistance.
Now, when you hear your spirit guides talk to you, is it an inner knowing that you know what they're saying to you, or do you audibly hear?
I audibly hear.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, audibly hear. I mean, several times I heard, and I actually turned around. I thought somebody was standing behind me talking to me. So I audibly hear. And that hearing opened up shortly after I cleared a past life. Where I was persecuted and I had my hands over my ears as I was being persecuted. So that blocked my clairaudience. And as and as I healed that life, that experience in that life, shortly after healing that, I couldn't really hear at all. And my hearing got very muffled, but then it began to clear. And it was right after that, shortly after, I began hearing spirit. And we all have these abilities. You know, they're not, I know a lot of people call them gifts, and they are, but I see them as natural abilities that we all have that can be developed.
Yeah, it's just clearing, getting, like you said, getting out of your own way and surrendering and opening up that channel, you know?
Yeah. And I think we all have to. And you know, to your point about like more of these past lives, these old timelines are coming in at the beginning of 2023, which is where we are now. Spirit told me this year is going to be a year where we begin to embody the light more than ever before. So it's the cells of our body beginning to awaken to the higher frequencies of light. And in order to do that, there's so much cellular memory, you know, at the physical level.
Wow, that makes so much sense.
Yep. But it's so, I'm getting chills, right? So for us to embody the light, to actually evolve our physical beingness beyond disease, those old timelines they're going to come forth. We're going to dream them. We're going to go on a hike and see it.
Wow.
Like you did, right? And as we clear it, it's like the cells open up and just begin to absorb or exude more light.
That's so interesting, because I started working on my book the end of last year, and I had to stop because my book's about my cancer journey, which was 10 years ago this year. And I had to stop because my body was like starting to freak out. Not me, not my spirit, my mind, none of that, but my physical body was starting to be like, oh no, are we going here again? What's going on? You know, because there was so much trauma committed within my body. I thought I was doing the right thing by going through treatment and all of that, you know, but the cells of my body were freaking out.
Yes. Well, I'm sure you did do the right thing. And I pray and hope that you are, and I sense that you are. Okay.
Yeah, I feel completely
okay.
cleared now. I don't even go in for colonoscopies like I'm supposed to, because I'm just like, I can feel.
You can feel.
I cleared up all the other ancillary stuff around me that helped me manifest that way back when.
Yes. Yes. So that's wonderful. But on a cellular level, and I can relate to what you're saying, on a cellular level, the body remembers how it felt when it wasn't well. Yep. Because for years after I had healed from chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic bronchitis, insomnia, I mean, I was pale, green, thin, I was fainting, all kinds of things.
Oh my gosh.
I feared it returning.
Yeah.
And I feared it returning. And the healer said, she said to me, and I hope this is going to like help anybody who listens to this, is to remind yourself and your body, you're fine.
Yeah.
Continue to say, no, I'm fine. I'm healthy. I'm fine. Let the energy of those words get back into the body. And the recollection of the trauma will dissolve.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. I just had to take a break and set it aside and just work with my body for a few weeks and just say, you're safe. I'm taking care of you. We're better now. We're not going to do that again. It's over. It's done. We're healthy now. So,
and we don't need to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's also interesting about, you know, the memory that our cells carry.
Yeah.
Is fascinating to me. It's like, how does something come through my cellular memory from hundreds of years ago? Right. You know, that's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. I write a little bit about this as well in the book, Through the Etheric Body. Like there's the way that I describe it is your soul is so vast, right? It's such a vast consciousness. But within that vast consciousness, there is like a mainframe computer
Yeah.
that holds all the cellular memory. And it's usually held in the etheric body, which is a body of light, right? Which is right, it runs right close to the physical body. And that's where all of this, the ancestral patterns, the trauma, every lifetime, that's where it's all held. And when it begins to release from the etheric body, the physical body, like, just becomes more and more healthy. It becomes more light. It becomes like you say, I don't even worry about that. That's not coming back.
Yeah. It's just not in my field anymore. I feel it's just not there.
That's I just got chills. So yes, exactly. It's not in your field anymore.
Yeah. So, okay, so we have this etheric body, and we should tend to that. We should tend to our physical body. We should tend to our soul and our spirit. What else do we need to kind of be aware of? Or all these things just kind of working in tandem with one another? If we're doing the work and surrendering and being in flow, it's all going to be good? Or are there specific things we should tend to?
Well, I believe, like anything else, there's a priority. The layers come up, right? We know about all these layers, and the layers come up in their priority of what needs to be addressed next. And I believe if we just keep following, right, whatever's coming up next, if we keep following that, the harmony is going to follow.
And that sounds like what you're describing as flow.
And that's for me, flow. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And that everything we want to be and who we want to be and how we want to be, and we already are. It's just a matter of remembering it through the dissolution and the eradication of the things that made us feel we're not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The journey is so beautiful. And one of my greatest joys is like to start to see people empowered. And
yes.
And there are more women than men. There's lots of men, but there's so many women, and it's like a joy in my heart.
I think, there's something, we all know the divine feminine needs to regain, or has regained, her power, stepping back into it. We're starting to see evidence of that now in the physical world, of it happening. Oh my gosh, and I don't know where I was going with this.
That's okay. The divine feminine.
Yes, the divine feminine. So what are you seeing happen with these women and their unfoldment? Because I feel like they've been suppressed, but they've held on to that inner knowing through all of the suppression. And now these gifts are coming forward. Are you seeing something similar to that going on?
I am. I am. I would say women, perhaps more in their 40s and older. The younger generation still has some work to do.
Yeah.
I think they're a little misguided on what true empowerment is. But there are many of them that are also not wanting to buy into what their generation is doing, and they want to become whole within themselves. So I am seeing that.
I do see a lot of them searching. They're searching for something, and they're not quite able to figure out what that is yet.
Right.
Right. But I'm hopeful.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just hopeful there's going to be a time when that's going to shift even more. It feels like it's getting to that tipping point where that's going to happen. Are you sensing something similar?
Yes, because what everybody is searching for isn't outside themselves. So once they begin to realize I'm searching for this, and I'm searching for love, and I'm searching for prosperity, and I'm searching for health, and I want happiness. When they begin to realize it isn't out there, it's in here, that's the shift.
Yeah.
And I do see it. Certainly many of the clients that I work with who are really more like mid-30s and older.
Yeah.
There's a
It
few
seems
in
like
the
there needs to be some little shakeup that happens. I mean, that's what I needed to like reawaken my ass was like, boom, here you go. Have some stage 3 cancer and figure this shit out now.
Yeah. Yes. And my goodness gracious, the catalysts, right? The catalyst for awakening, we need a brick on the head.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, no, it can't be just, oh, yes, I'm going to awaken. No, there needs to be this big, massive, dysfunctional chaos, this big mass, right? And then you start paying attention.
Yeah.
And so, yes. And for me too, I was sick for 6 years. And for 6 years and without a diagnosis even. No one can find anything wrong with me. Meanwhile, I was drawn and sallow. I couldn't gain weight. I was constantly sick with bronchitis on all kinds of antibiotics and had chronic fatigue syndrome. Oh, and they told me, well, that's incurable. So you're going to have that the rest of your life. I don't have it the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, that saddens me. The whole medical community is really so upside down. It feels like, and thank God there's so many more energy workers coming out and holistic practitioners and that sort of thing. Because that's one thing I am seeing in the younger folks. My daughter, who is going to be 30 in February, had a little boy 5 years ago. And about a year into it, she decided she was going to stop giving him those yearly jabs that they recommend. And now she's going the whole other direction. And along with that came, look at the medicines, the over-the-counter medicines, look at all these other things. So that is getting her into that world.
Yeah.
Because she just like texted me about a week or two ago, and she's like, I just saw a bunch of stuff on TikTok, and I feel like my world's been turned upside down. She started seeing some of the things you and I have been seeing for years that are going on, and some of the secrets and some of the things, the reality of things. So I don't know. There's hope there.
Well, there definitely is. And good for her. Good for your daughter and her baby boy.
Yeah.
All of the systems that we currently live under, governmental, educational, financial, everything, it's all going to break down. And many of us know that. So we're going to start to see more and more, especially this year, the breakdown of that.
Yeah.
And to be empowered, it's like you need a Reiki master in every family, right? You need an herbalist in every family. And we need to get back to our roots. Because the body responds to natural medicine, right? Herbs are food, natural medicines. The body understands this from hundreds of thousands of years ago. The body doesn't quite understand pharmaceutical medicine because it's relatively new. The body has to figure out what to do with this. So I believe the way of the future is absolutely alternative medicine. I mean, I've been there for decades already.
Yeah.
But yes, I do believe that is the way forward.
Yeah. Yeah. This whole collapse couldn't come soon enough as far as I'm concerned, because I just feel like, oh, what's the circus doing today?
Yes. Is it all crumbled yet so we can rebuild it into something that really works for everyone?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. But it is nice to see, these little communities starting to sprout up and people getting chickens in their backyard and all of that fun stuff. It's neat.
It is neat. More awareness for nutrition. I've recently switched from coffee over to the mushroom coffee.
Oh, I tried that and I loved it. And then a month later, it started hurting my stomach.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll let you know if that starts happening to me.
Yeah. But my husband has it every day and he loves it.
Yeah.
No problem. But he's got a cast iron stomach.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're just going to find all these natural substitutes. And look,
Yeah.
coffee isn't bad. It's just, depends on how your body responds to it. So,
And all things in moderation. I mean, we are here to be humans. All this stuff we're doing is so much fun, but it's also fun to just be human,
oh, definitely.
and
gotta
I think
enjoy the
that can
pleasures
get
of
lost sometimes too.
Yeah. I'll give up sugar before I'd give up a glass of wine.
Yeah.
So, because a glass of wine once in a while, and I enjoy it, right?
Oh,
It's part of the pleasure of
absolutely.
being human.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And going like we're going to go to a little local fair on Saturday and things, I mean, when you first, and everybody goes through this, your first, you start awakening, you're obsessed with it all. And you have to be immersed in it all the time. And that's all you want to do. And then it's like, oh, but wait a minute, there's fun stuff going on over here.
Right. There's chocolate brownies over there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Give yourself
I get it.
permission.
You're right. We get immersed in it and we're very rigid about it until it really becomes part of us. And then we kind of, loosen up a little bit, right?
Yeah. So what did all your friends think of you when you started going through all of this?
Well, friends and family did not understand. The truth is, I didn't understand, but I was following. I had to follow. I had no choice, and I knew it. So it was not easy. It was not easy, especially family. Oh my God, they make all sorts of judgments and, well, what do you mean you can't come? What do you mean you can't come for the barbecue? Or what do you mean you can't do this or that? And I would say, I'm just exhausted. I don't have the energy. Well, go see a doctor. So they don't understand. So what I did was I just let them be them.
Yeah.
And whatever they thought about me, I didn't take personally because I knew they didn't know what was happening to me. And in truth, they were probably afraid. If I'm changing,
yes,
that mirrors back to them perhaps what they need to change. So nobody really wants you to change. Nobody really wants you to do anything different than you've been doing your whole life.
Yeah.
So it was challenging. But I had the support of my healer and my husband at the time, who I'm still amazing friends with. And he said to me, Pauline, do whatever you got to do. And I did. You try to explain it to people, but they don't get it. And then you just say, I don't need to explain anymore because I don't quite understand it myself. It's just happening.
Yeah.
And you get through it, and you lose some friends.
Yep.
And you lose the people, you can even lose a family member or two, to it because they just think you're crazy, but you're not crazy. And this is it's a path that you need to walk.
Yeah.
And it's all okay, right? You send them love. And you understand that they're just not ready to know yet. And it's okay.
Now I feel like there's somebody else in your family because you have so many gifts. And I feel like a lot of that's kind of, comes down through the family lineage. Is there anyone else in your family that has any abilities?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of, but I do have a cousin who is highly psychic and she completely shuts it off.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's complete. Yeah. Okay. So it may be on my father's side.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then I have a niece on another side who she is her grandmother. She is a healer and she is psychic and she's learning. She's 30. So she's learning.
Wow.
She's just starting the journey and understanding what this is all about.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. Speaking of the kids, have you been around little babies lately?
Well, yeah, I'm around. I don't have any of my own, but I'm around babies. I'm around children. I have children
What is
clients.
going on? Those kids are just like, you look at them and go, whoa, who are you?
They're evolved souls, that's for sure.
Yes.
And they're the new children, and they need to be kept as pure as possible.
Mm,
They're
That's-
amazing.
yeah.
They are going to change the world.
Yeah.
They're going to install systems that perhaps we can't even quite see yet.
Yeah. Definitely feel something when you connect with those little souls.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're so wise.
Yes.
Right? Took us 50 years, 60 years to have this wisdom, and they're coming out at like 2 years old, 5 years old, and speaking the wisdom of the universe.
Yep. Totally.
It's amazing.
So you mentioned that you channel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you'd be willing to do today? Are you comfortable with that?
I channel through the Akashic records, so I can't open that up to the audience.
Okay.
But I also do channel light language from the Star Mothers.
Oh, that would be beautiful. Would you be willing to share that?
That I can do.
Oh, yes, please.
That I can do. All right, so let me connect.
Okay.
We'll send a blessing. Arakanye no hanakshi. Ahdu ahanjukena ahataki. Lahnu ureni shiki titonomo ayaka hanalabai. Turushini aratu mahene aka nahasnasana atutunaya. Yanakina. Purapuku ure nihni hakatuna. Thank you. And my sense was they were saying to stay in the frequency of love, that you are part of the universe, that you are never alone, and that you are love. I'm just waiting to hear if there's anything else they said that I might have missed. Come home to the love in your heart. Thank you.
It was beautiful. Now, what was that from, you said?
So I began channeling this language several years ago, and I had no idea who it was or what it was. And I spoke with a friend of mine who's an oracle. And she said, you're channeling the Star Mothers. I said, well, who are they? And my sense of them is that they are like a group of feminine energies. They're healers. They're a group of feminine energies from different galaxies that come together. It's almost like they're like a conglomerate. So they're multi beings. So there's groups of them that come, and the way that I channel them, it doesn't always sound the same. It depends on who is channeling. Sometimes it's like got a little Native American sound to it. Other times it sounds like something completely different. But it seems to be a language that is merged.
It's beautiful.
We'll call it like divine feminines from different galaxies. And sometimes in my healing sessions, they just speak and it clears some energy.
Wow. I really felt that when you were speaking. It was like, just went right into me.
Yes. I still have chills. I still have chills from it. They're very loving. And they're like healers.
Yeah.
So I think that they're just from different, I think they're Pleiadian, I think they're Andromedan, I think they're Orion, I think they're just from all different galaxies.
Mm.
And they show themselves too as like a pink light or like a circular,
Oh,
like
beautiful.
a pink light or like a pink circle of light.
So you have the ability to see too? Is that one of your clairs?
Yeah.
Wow. You have all the clairs going on.
Yes, not all 100%, but it seems that way. Again, the more I keep healing myself and coming home into the heart,
Yes.
into my soul, these things just open up.
Mm. I love that.
So I know that if I can do that, anybody can. Because, I was a left brainer, human resources, property management, problem solver. So,
Wow.
so if I can, anybody can.
So we were just talking, it sounded like your connection there was more galactic in nature.
It is.
Do you also connect to the angelic realm?
To some of the angelic realms, yes. Yes, but less so. Some of them, but more galactic.
Okay. And then are there any others like elementals or anything that you've connected with?
Fairies.
Yeah.
They're in my aura, supposedly. I've never seen them in my aura, but I was told there's fairies in my aura. But that's because I'm an herbalist too.
Oh, beautiful.
So they all play a role. And the fairies have come to, when I've worked with women who wanted to conceive, and then once they conceived, to protect the growing fetus, the fairies would come and the clients would feel these little things poking at them. It was like they were just protecting the life of the fetus. It was so beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. I read somewhere, I don't know if it was a post or what it was, but it was saying that the elemental kingdom is going to be very important in this transition coming up on this planet. It felt like that we really all need to start bringing that awareness into our field and not forget about the elementals, because they're going to play a pivotal role.
Yes, and connection to Gaia.
Yeah.
And connection to the earth. And we have to make sure that we maintain our connection to earth, to Gaia. Very important. Also for Gaia's healing.
Yes. Because
she's been so polluted. So the elementals will absolutely play a huge role in that. Yeah, they're around. They're flittering around all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And they're probably in everybody's photographs, whether they realize it or not.
Oh yeah.
They're there.
Yeah.
Yes. They're all here to help us.
Well, it's going to be an exciting time coming up here.
We do. We have a lot of exciting things happening, and I know in my heart that as we continue to evolve and we keep embodying the light and we keep reaching to the higher dimensions of light and bringing it down here, that is the answer. Because spirit, the elementals, the galactics, the angels, they work through us through that light.
Mm. Yep. Absolutely.
And so even when people say to me, well, I don't really know what my purpose is, I'm like, you being here on this earth, seeking the light, is an incredible purpose.
Mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my dear, what have you got going on? You mentioned the book. I want you to also share with everybody what else you might be up to these days, and I will post links to all of your stuff below, but I'd love for you to just verbally share with everybody what you got going on. Okay, well, I'll just put here, okay, there's the book, the little blue room. That's where all the miracles happened, in the little blue room. Oh, really? Now, is that a real room that exists? Yes. Yes, awakening the soul to love, joy, freedom, and power. And I do have some online classes. I'm going to be doing some chakra weekends.
more online classes. I am creating a course in connection to my book, starting from
Neat.
crisis, working through illness, just bringing people along the whole process into their soul's empowerment. So that course is in progress. And I do work with a woman in Connecticut. We work with Awakened Events, and she's got an amazing program called The Missing Piece, okay, which is PEACE, of all the different missing pieces that we put together, all right, for empowerment. So that's just a few of the things that I'm working on. And I have there's two more books coming. There's another book coming, and then the introduction to the third book is already written, but that's got to wait.
Wow. Wow. The healing element is going to be so necessary with everything that we're seeing from the jab, especially.
It's very true. And there are lots of things that people can do, from energy work to certain types of detoxification, all right, that will remove that from your system.
That's good to know.
I've actually done it. There's a technique that I know. It's not my own, so I can't teach it, but there are things to do to help remove it energetically.
Beautiful. Good to know.
Sort of like null it, null and void it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Pauline, what a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you.
The pleasure was all mine. Really, you gave me this time to express what I know, and I just want humanity to be loved and to rise and to know that all things are possible, especially when we're unified.
So true. So true. Thank you, my dear. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and sending much love to all.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.